Hi, welcome back to Real Auto Reports, live from Real Auto Ranch. We have the real video, the real review of this 2013 Hyundai Genesis Coupe, all new and redesigned for 2013, and the track edition. There's a lot to go into details with on this car, so let's jump in the driver's seat and take off and see what it has to offer. All right, so welcome back. We are in the 2013 Hyundai Genesis Coupe. This is a pretty cool car because it is the track edition, which means it is performance oriented. You've got a manual transmission, 6-speed, short throw, metal pedals, with the rubber grommets to help you keep your grip. It's got a nice steering. It's got an upgraded performance suspension. Everything that you would expect in a car that is trying to speak the language of performance. The question is, can the Hyundai Genesis really do that? In previous generations, well, it's not that it was bad. It's actually been a great car since they introduced the Coupe. But it is very different from the four-door sedan that is the Hyundai Genesis. So the Coupe has been evolving. And in 2013, the car we're testing here, it has gone through a pretty significant facelift, both in its front appearance, rear appearance, and pretty much in the performance that it puts forward with the direct injected 3.8 liter V6. It is not turbocharged, but that direct injection, they say, gives you like 14% more horsepower than previous generations, and that's pretty impressive. So let's get into some more details about this Hyundai Genesis Coupe. All right, the first thing you want to know is, how does this car drive and perform? Well, it's 348 horsepower coming from the direct injected 3.8 liter V6 engine. It is naturally aspirated, so there's no turbo lag. And if we just give it a little stop here and then we put it in gear, it actually has a pretty throaty sound to it for a V6, and it's quick at that. Hyundai says that this vehicle will go 0 to 60 in, the low 5-second range. And that's pretty good for a car that costs right about $34,000 as you see it outfitted. So this is going to compete directly with something like a 370Z from Nissan. And the thing that is interesting about the Hyundai brand is that it has been evolving. It's been getting better. And with each generation of their cars, we see significant improvements both in ride, handling, performance. This vehicle has traction and stability control. You turn that off, you turn the traction control off by hitting the button over here by the left of the steering wheel, or you can hold it and turn off both traction and stability. And it gives you that little ding to say, are you really sure you want to do that? And if you do, it will peel out with the best of them. I stubbed that out so we weren't like swinging around. But you can do exactly what you might have seen in our opening with the FRS. This car will do donuts all day long. It's got power galore with 348 horsepower and a ton of torque. One of the unique things about this vehicle is that it actually has this gauge cluster here, but the unique thing is the torque gauge. It'll tell you how many foot-pounds of torque up to 300 on the gauge that you are putting down on the road. And I think that is pretty interesting. You can see when I accelerate here, we're just over 200 foot-pounds of torque or so there. And that is pretty cool. I don't know what the real daily application of that gauge is. It's not like your fuel consumption gauge here or your oil temp gauge. And it's kind of interesting. In normal rally packs, you would have an oil pressure gauge, oil temp, and then the temperature, the actual engine temp, which is actually in here with the fuel gauge in the middle of the gauges there. But you might also have an amp meter, like a gauge showing you whether your generator's charging, and in these day and age, it's obviously an alternator. But all in all, I guess what I'm getting at is the performance and the ride and handling. The track package that we have here has bigger sway bars. It has a stiffer suspension setup and rebound rates. It drives really nice, yet it's a nice, comfortable blend of in-town and track driving. You can drive this car daily. It's not too rough on you across bumps and things like that. When you really, like, we're going to get out here on this road that's 55 and really, you can see it really does perform. You really don't even need 6 speeds to get up to speed. That was 60, and I'm telling you, that's first, second, and then, you know, you go over into sixth. Great performance out of this car. So I really have become smitten with it. Hyundai is not a brand that I thought I would really come to like from a performance aspect, but this Genesis Coupe has great looks. It's got that new Z design in the side of the body that we show in the real first impressions. And I tell you, the shift in this, the clutch, I really like the clutch in this car. It's got a nice weight to it. You can feel where it engages, and it doesn't give you that kind of ghost feeling that some of the hydraulic clutches in some cars give you, where you're not really sure where it's engaging. And some engage really close to the floor. This clutch has a nice uptake, I think, from a performance driving perspective. It feels good. The shift feels crisp. It's not as short throw as some, but it is pretty nice all in all. Now, one thing I will tell you about this car, with the press, you never know how they treat it. And this one seems to have a little chip or something out of the sixth gear. Even when you're going along at the highway and you go from fifth, so we're in fifth now, and you go into sixth, and then that's fourth, so fifth, and then sixth. Occasionally I get a little bit of resistance in the sixth gear, but I think that's from abuse, not from Hyundai itself, because overall the driving experience in this car is quite nice. It really does smack of someone that has put a lot of detail, a company that has put a lot of detail into this vehicle in terms of thinking about the ride and handling on a daily basis, but yet still being aggressive enough and powerful enough to go out to a track day. Now, what about the features in this car? What kind of features do you get in at about $34,000 and with the track and performance package? Well, you can see we have a black interior. There is no two-tone, so that's going to be a little different than some of the higher-end cars. But you do have leather and soft touch around, so the soft touch on the dashboard. This is plastic, but this is soft touch on the door. Easy to get to controls. You see here we have power door locks, auto windows for both front windows. Your mirror controls are easy to reach. Your traction control is easy to find. Auto headlights. All of your wheel controls, including the hang up and answer buttons for the phone, the volume control for the stereo. It's got an infinity stereo in this package. And the other thing I really like about it is that this car has navigation, the XM radio, everything that you could think of that you need in a sports car. Like, how much more do you really need? But it also has some nice cold weather package options, like the heated seats, and it's a 2-stage heated seat. So I do like that. It does have climate control as well. One note on the climate control, that is going to be a little bit of a nit, because the climate control is only single stage, or what I mean by that is it's not dual zone, it's a single zone. So that is interesting, because you can tell that they're really making this a driver's car. The temperature controls right here, the fan controls here. The passenger is going to have to reach across to change the temperature and the volume anyway. Not completely unusual, but you can tell that this is very driver-centric. You also have the optional sunroof here, and it tilts and slides back and has a built-in wind deflector. And I find driving this car with the sunroof open and the windows up quite pleasant. It doesn't give you a ton of buffeting and noise that would make it unpleasant. Even with the windows down, it gives you a lot of good wind experience without it being so blustery and unpleasant that you wouldn't ever want to drive with the windows down. So this can be a real cool coupe cruiser for weekends and driving up and down the strip. If you still do that in your town, we have something here in Colorado called the Golden Super Cruise, where people drive up and down all summer on the Saturdays. and go up and down South Golden Road. This is a cool car that you can take out there, and it's got the looks to match. Now, from a livability perspective, one of the interesting things about this Genesis Coupe is that it is also pretty capable. You do have the back seats there, so you can cram people in here if you really have to. You know, there is a good amount of room back here compared to some even compact cars that I've driven, but it's not someplace you're going to want to stick people on a regular basis. Better for cargo and stuff like that you need to carry that you don't want to put in the trunk. And speaking of the trunk is quite large. I've actually gotten a large rolling suitcase plus 2 carry-on suitcases in the trunk, and it shut and it was fine. That tells you that this car, you can go to the airport and pick up a passenger if you need to, and you can go to Costco and get a good amount in the car, especially with the back seat here, and it won't really impede your lifestyle if you like to drive a sports coupe. Now, something else that's interesting about the 2013 and with the track package is we also have the optional 19-inch wheels, which really set this car off from the outside. It has a neat spoiler that is designed, it's not just a little bow, it has a nice look to it, and I think really adds to the car. You know, in a lot of these cars, it doesn't add to the car. It just, you know, is there and you're kind of like, well, I don't know, I could take or leave the spoiler. I think a lot of this car has been really thought through, and we really like it for that. So if you're in the market for a sport coupe, you like 2 seats but want the option of the back seat, you like the fact that this car has 348 horsepower and hasn't touched $35,000 as we're testing it here, the Hyundai is one you're definitely going to want to cross-shop with the competition. The Hyundais are getting better and better every time we drive them, and from the 02 that was my grandma's that I drove for many years back and forth commuting to the office just because it was the extra car, to the new Elantras that they have today, the new Sonatas and the hybrids, and things like this Genesis Sports Coupe, I'm telling you, you get a lot of value in these Hyundais, and the experience is becoming more and more performance and luxury oriented as time goes on. And it will not surprise me if one day the Equus is seen as just as capable, if not more so, than the Lexus brand, which started in the same place as Hyundai not that long ago in the late 80s, early 90s here in the US. So, you know, for what that's worth, I'm really impressed with this car. That doesn't happen all that often that I'm this complimentary. There are some nits, like you don't have memory seats at this price point, you don't have cooled seats. You know, it probably could use with a little bit more noise dampening, and you know, we'd like to see some features. I mean, it's got the push to start and it's got the keyless entry, but it doesn't have some of the nicer touches inside, like the multi-tone interior at this price point. And so there are some improvements that I am sure Hyundai will continue to make, but you do have things like the Blue Link, the SOS built in. You've got garage door opener controls, sunglass holders so that when the sunlight's really blinding you, you can grab them easily. In the visors, you have things like the extenders. There's a lot of detail that you do have to give Hyundai credit for, and there's always room for improvement. And I think the best improvements we could see are really the touch and the luxury aspects, where you could see them adding some detail into the interior that would make it just that much more rich. But all in all, they've done a great job. It's something you want to check out if you like sports coupes. Make sure you try the manual, but you can get an automatic as well. And make sure you try out the track package with the stiffer suspension like we have here, and drive the regular one. See which one you like better for your driving style. I'll tell you, this car would make an excellent autocross car and be a lot of fun. So, we will have the wrap up coming up next. So that's the real video, the real review of this 2013 Hyundai Genesis Coupe, the track edition. And we really like this car after driving it a week, putting several hundred miles on it. It is fantastic to drive, and really a step up from the previous generation Genesis Coupes that have been out there. Hyundai's really making waves with 348 horsepower coming from this direct injected V6 engine, 0 to 60 times in the low 5-second range according to Hyundai. Brembo brakes, navigation, climate control, heated seats, and yet it still feels like a simple sports coupe, which is probably the best part about it at all. I really like this car. In fact, I think the new design is spot on for a nice coupe to give you that curb appeal, but still that driving performance out on the road. At about $34,000 as tested, it also won't break the bank, especially compared to other cars that are well optioned, like the Scion FRS. And I think this one would really take it out on the track and the road. So, good job, Hyundai. From Real Auto Reports, I'm Jonathan McGrew. We're here at Real Auto Ranch. Come back for more real first impressions and real videos. We'll see you down the road.